The calm before the storm. The toughest competition in MMA. The Ultimate Fighter, coached by Daniel Cormier and Michael Bisping, is back for its 34th season. The two UFC legends, guiding 20 up-and-coming prospects across women's strawweight and men's bantamweight through a grueling competition where only one from each division can be left standing by season's end. The show that changed the sport forever, brought it to the mainstream, and produced the champions of tomorrow, now enters the Paramount era. Welcome to Season 3 of TUF Enough, a special collaboration of the ETB Network alongside your hosts, Tom Albano and Zain Bando. It's time for the aftermath.
All right, we are here for another edition of TUF Enough. 4 episodes in. That marks the, what we think, 1/3 point of the season.
We hope.
If everything goes the way tough seasons in the past have gone, we're at the 1/3 point. Still 8 episodes left. We're halfway through the qualifying round now. 4 people are into the semifinals, another 4 to go. And yeah, we got a lot of madness to talk about from this week, and then some more madness that's coming up. Tom Albano here alongside Zain Bando. Zain, welcome back. Good to have you back.
It's good to be back.
All right. Make sure you hit that like button, all of you out there, and hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you get notified of everything we do at the Empty the Bench podcast network. Every episode of Fight IQ, every episode of Bando's Breakdowns, every episode of Zan Zinger Part 2 and ETV Sports, every Fight IQ Puncher's Chance, except this week. We're off this week for Puncher's Chance because, well, it's a very rare weekend where MMA, except for PFL Mina, has decided to take off.
Yeah, and there's no point in talking about a top-ranked fight that nobody will watch on the 4th of July. So I think you made a smart decision.
Yeah. Well, obviously Mina doesn't care about the 4th of July, but that's neither here nor there. Allows us some rest too, because next week is going to be, ever so crazy, considering there's a crazy Irishman that's going to be making his return.
Yeah, fingers crossed. He has about a week and 10 days.
Well, I'm starting to believe him a little more now, because now there are no cards left. The next card is his.
It's true. It's very true. We still have to get to fight week, though. But nonetheless, it's good to be back. This is the only UFC-related thing that's currently going on this week. So it's good to be able to do this. It's a bit of a break, if you will. And I'm just going to say this. I think it would have been much more sufficient, given that there was no UFC event this Saturday. He did have 2 episodes, but what do I know? This episode was still entertaining. I'm excited to get into it. Some interesting twists and turns, a little bit of controversy, definitely a huge teaser for the upcoming episode that will be next week, and a whole lot more, but it was a lot of fun, no doubt about it.
All of you out there who are watching on X, by the way, make sure to come to the YouTube home, youtube.com/ETV Network. But still, please hit the like button, hit quote post, repost, or as us old heads like to say, retweet, quote tweet. And you can follow us across social media, all our shows at Fight IQ ETB, at Bando's Breakdown. You can follow the network at ETB Network, and then you can follow both Zan and I on our personal social medias, as you can see below, at Thomas J. Albano and at Zambando99. So let's talk about this week's episode. And I think I have a perfect episode title. I don't know what the actual episode title was of this week, but I have my own that I'd like to give.
Okay.
Mehemmedali.
Yeah, that's probably smart, because the episode was tailored around Mehemmedali Osmanli, and obviously this was kind of, narrative wise, within the first 5 minutes of the episode, you're like, okay, the stardom on this guy is unbelievable. So to give
Zain, I know you weren't on last week, but I think it was made clear from the end of last week, because the end of last week, Dana didn't say too much about Artem, but when it came to speaking about Muhammad Ali, oh man, you could see Dana's heart go right through his chest. He wanted to praise this kid to high heaven. Oh, by the way, I know I spelled Muhammad Ali different here from last week. I had to look it up. We have another Sergey Spivak situation on our hands, and
okay.
There are two acceptable spellings of Muhammad Ali. So I think.
So I assume the two acceptable spellings. One of them was what you indicated a week ago
with the ELI, and then there is one for this week, but the ALI. I think
very interesting. But
it just comes down to Zain. I think it just comes down to how much do you want to flash in the face that this kid is named after Muhammad Ali.
Well said. And as I was saying just a second ago, it wouldn't be a UFC prospect or some sort of I guess UFC-ism, if you will, without two different versions or multiple versions of the same name.
I mean, like I said, I think it comes down to how much do you want to flash in the face of, hello, I think it's obvious who this guy is named after. And if your whole first name is Muhammad Ali, I think you were born to fight.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, the kid's story is inspirational as ever. Some of it was a little bit like, wow, that was a crazy twist, which we'll get into in a little bit. But he certainly is born to do this. As I'm using Bisping's words in the episode as a compliment here, but clearly there's something special about him, and clearly he was just, I don't know, it was like a tailor-made perfect matchup for him, because it went the way that neither of the coaches thought it would go, which is extremely interesting. But yeah, his backstory is cool, and I think Artem has a good heart about him as well. Mm-hmm. So two interesting dynamics for sure. One guy a little bit more on the quieter side, another guy really committed and really dedicated at 21 years old to try to make a run at this thing, which is what he's in the midst of doing.
And that's the other thing. So, but 12-1 at 21 years old, a former UAE Warriors champion at 21 years old. Like, for what the crap that I give about, it's that it's obvious that Muhammad Ali is the star of the show. It's obvious that he's kind of being positioned as the guy you want to see, or the potential favorite for the show. It's not without reason. Like, the fact that he's only 21 years old, has the background that he did. I mean, the background that he has, where his family, and he admitted that he didn't understand it at a young age, but losing everything and having to work your way from the ground up. Like, it almost kind of feels like Zain, not only is he named after Muhammad Ali, but almost like his story in some ways compares to, well, either Muhammad Ali or, and I say this because I did the interview with him, Muhammad Ali's grandsons, Diageo Ali Walsh and Nico Ali Walsh.
Yeah, and just to do some quick fact checking, 84% of his wins are by finish. So it's a pretty good sample size to think that every single time this kid fights, he's going to be looking for the finish in the worst way he possibly can.
Yeah, it seems like after this episode, they tried to position. It's like when you watch this episode, it was going to go one of two ways. You either were going to say, okay, this guy is no gimmick. This guy is no joke. This guy is young, hungry, and legit. Or you were going to see this episode be the pitfalls for having a big ego, the pitfalls for having so much hype around you.
Anytime you want to talk about potential pitfalls or any of that, looking at his career before The Ultimate Fighter, he's only fought one name that's below 500. Everybody else is legitimate 7-0, 8-0, 9-0 competitions. So it's not like he was coming in fighting cans over in the Middle East, and this was his first real test. He'd have been fighting names overseas for quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's one of the more legit competitors over on the men's side. And they
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say the worst guy he fought was his second to last fight last September, and the kid Ali Yusuf was 14, 15, and 1, and that's the worst guy he's fought. So
and still, you could even twist that around to say he fought a guy who was really experienced, 30 fights under his belt.
right, exactly.
So he's no joke. And just to make it more clear how much of a favorite Mehemmedali Osmanli is to this competition, let's talk about the segment that you mentioned before we started this show, Zain. Adrenaline Mountain, which for those of you who don't know, Adrenaline Mountain is kind of this attraction over in Las Vegas. There's wild animals, there's rattlesnakes, there's all this nature that's present, but also it's a good place to get sun, get exercise, and train at. And people go there to see, what it's like.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, having been to Vegas a couple of times, I had no idea that this mountain even existed. But it's clear that, it's used to push you to your limit, and that is what Team Bisping did. And you could tell that the entire team was caught off guard because I think, based on the way it was filmed and framed, if you will, they had no idea that they were even doing that day. And they got at to me they were awestruck. Like, especially Anna, she was like, "What in the world are we doing here?"
Yeah, you saw several people on Team Bisping basically say, "Where the F are we going?"
Yeah, exactly.
But Bisping's logic was that when you do a show like TUF, it's same song and dance. It's routine after routine. He compared it to Groundhog Day, where you're doing the same trainings in the same facility, the same locations.
He's right. And if this was season 7, season 8, or season 9, it would be more gym footage. So now they're trying to kind of expand upon the horizons, if you will. And usually you don't see outside stuff on that show until the coaches challenge. So it was very unique.
Or if they're getting some sort of treat. Like last week, they were taken out to Power Slap.
Right.
So...
which, by the way, is a bit of an early treatment given previous seasons. You usually have to wait until 7, 8, or 9 to see anything remotely entertaining that they do.
I'm curious what the training and taping schedule was like, because Dana was like, yeah, like you said, it was week 3, and Dana said, for how long these guys have been training and such, that we wanted to give them a treat. Like, did they put something in out of order, or was there just something... or was this just, like you said, an early season treat where it's like, hey, let's make sure you guys don't tire out and burn out early?
Yeah, definitely a confusing side from a production angle, but still very interesting to kind of see how all of his fighters handled the situation, and especially for Muhammad Ali to just kind of see that he is really dedicated to this, and the way he just pushed himself and didn't really care about his, I guess, overall being physically burnt out was very, very interesting and very impressive at the same time, because usually when you go up a hill or a mountain like that, usually, based on other footage that has been shown in previous Ultimate Fighter seasons, you go up a hill or a mountain one time and half of the contestants are basically done. This guy did it like it was no tomorrow, and then you could tell he was really confident when he was complimenting himself, which, to say this without trying to laugh a lot, a little bit
He's
too
got an
much.
ego.
Yeah.
He's got an ego. And he says, well, in order to be a fighter, you got to have an ego. And
he's not wrong. I mean, if you look at most superstars that have ever, gone all their way to the top of the UFC ladder, I would say a good majority of them have egos to a certain extent.
Well, Zain, if you're going to go that route, they did the thing. Or should I say Michael Bisping did the thing. What did he say? To paraphrase, he reminds me of a young Conor McGregor. It's like, there you go.
Yeah, here we go. I don't know if I'd go that far, but he did say everything I said I would do, I've done, which is technically taking a page out of the Conor McGregor playbook. So,
he's 21 and he's already doing the Conor McGregor. He hasn't. I don't think he's won 2 titles in UA Warrior, but he's doing the
I don't.
McGregor thing already.
No, he only won a title once. I'm pretty sure.
You know what, Zain? And Mike, no,
yeah, he only. Well, actually, Tom, it wasn't even in UAE Warrior. He won a title in a promotion called New Generation, so it wasn't even in his previous promotion.
That's right. Because we did talk about some of the profiles of these guys on episode 1. I would like to interrupt to just say something to Nick and Callan, breaking fourth wall. Can we name this episode Muhammad Ali? Because at this point, I feel like that's what the top episode should have been called. And it feels like they are just trying to flash it in your face. I understand what they're trying to do. But I really cannot believe that Michael Bisping flat up basically already threw the Conor McGregor comparison out there because of the ego, because of the way he talks and his self-belief. You're right, he has a fantastic story. But it's just, I can't believe they're already going that route, which is funny also when you consider that when you're talking about background, where does Muhammad Ali come from? It comes from Azerbaijan, and then his family moves over to Russia. So actually, Zain, you have the best of both worlds. You know why? He's got a background similar to Habib, but he's got a personality similar to Conor. No wonder Dana's eyes are basically going like the old cartoon thing where you fall in love with somebody.
Yeah, well, we'll see how long he falls in love with them, because now that target is on his back, he's going to go out and he's going to keep winning, because as soon as that guy loses, you worry about his stock just a little bit.
Care for that kid anyway.
Right, exactly.
Speaking of Dana White and losing and not giving any chances, Artem Belakh, who, by the way, also has a nice background talking about how protective he is of his siblings, also somebody who had to work his way up from nothing. But the big storyline to this episode that's not named Muhammad Ali, Artem was talking about struggles with this weight cut. I have in my notes, so the day before weigh-ins, he needed to lose 10 pounds. The morning of the weigh-ins, he needed to lose 7 pounds. He was talking about how his body usually was fine with the cut to 135, right, but he was basically stuck at featherweight when he needed to make for bantamweight heading into the weigh-ins.
Yeah, it could have been a very dangerous situation, but he was able to obviously use the mechanisms that most fighters use to cut weight, and he actually was underweight, which is extremely interesting. You usually don't see that.
Yeah, that raised my eyebrow a bit, that when they weighed him on the scales 30 minutes before the weigh-in started, he weighed in at 144 and a half or 140 and a half.
I think it was certainly half. It was a half under the regular weight limit.
It was a pound and a half on. And I only say that because for those who don't follow UFC so much or are new considering the success of Freedom 250, the White House card, for non-title fights, you are allowed a 1 pound allowance. So really the featherweight limit for non-title fights is actually 146. For bantamweights, it's 136. For title fights, they have to weigh in on the 5.
Right.
So there was that, and it was weird how I shouldn't say weird because unfortunately we have seen situations like this where the body just shuts down on a fighter. And that's not good, especially when you're heading in for a fight like Muhammad Ali. So then comes I don't know what the word is, but every week we see something between the antics between Cormier and Bisping. And then this weight cut difficulty led to the antics between these two, where Cormier actually physically locks Team Bisping out of the gym because Team Bisping has a training session 10 to 12, leading right up to the weigh-in time. And because they had all this concern over Artem's weight cut, and you're talking about traditional mechanisms, Artem is at this point on the floor, wrapped in towels, basically almost like self-sawing his weight off of him. And Cormier does not want him to move because they're afraid if they move and try to reset this, his body is going to stop sweating and his body's going to be basically done and he's going to weigh in over the limit. So Cormier, in desperation and forgetting that Team Bisping has the schedule, ends up locking Bisping out. Bisping makes his way in through a side door, and the two get into a whole little debate. And Cormier and Bisping ask, I guess the question was, if the shoe was on the other foot, would Cormier be so willing to let a Team Bisping competitor do what was going on? And I'm not sure. Because Cormier is...
I'm not sure, but I do think in some weird way both guys have a point. Because if you have a schedule, you're trying to follow the schedule. But at the same time, though, from a scheduling standpoint, why schedule a training session right before you're about to weigh in? That's what I don't...
That's my question. Like, does TUF always do that? Because I feel like on a weigh-in day, you should focus on the weigh-in first before any training session.
Right. That was confusing. And obviously you and I watched a lot of the seasons, and I don't remember an incident like this ever occurring.
And I feel
now there's been instances where teams have walked in during other teams' practice.
Yes.
That's happened before, but nothing like we saw in this, at least not that I can recall.
So I'm wondering, are they playing this up for the cameras or something? Because I don't know, it just feels weird. It feels off to me.
It feels off to me as well, but it seems that they were able to figure it out. They got to the weigh-ins. Obviously, as we sort of kind of alluded to a little bit, Artem obviously makes the weight. Of course, Muhammad Ali resorted to trash talk. He clearly didn't like the antics of Team Cormier, and obviously it was going to be in a bit of a spearhead moment, but it didn't end up really becoming that way. But Bisping did his best to calm him down, because it's funny we mentioned this, because about 17 years ago, I think a younger Bisping could have easily pulled what his now TUF student did pull in the present, which is very interesting. So not the foreshadow per se, but having known what Bisping did on season 9, I think he remembers, okay, I can't let one of my guys do what I did to where it jeopardizes my reputation as a teammate and a coach. And that's exactly what Bisping was trying to avoid. And to be honest with you, I don't know about you, I could not make out what Cormier or what his team said that set the whole thing off.
It just feels like they were doing immature high school style, like just sounds. And I don't know what particular comment it was that set him off, but to Bisping's credit, and this goes back to the whole, to this thing here, Bisping openly talks about how Cormier likes to play mind games sometimes. And Bisping, knowing, his personality, knowing Muhammad Ali's personality, and like you said, knowing what Bisping would have done in the past, I think Bisping is just trying to ensure that Muhammad Ali was focused on the fight. And that's why I said at the start of this episode, I said, when we got to this point, it was like, maybe this episode actually is going to be more about the pitfalls. It's looking at the ego that Muhammad Ali has and the trash talk. It's like, are they all of a sudden starting to set him up for, a downfall? Because then I would have been coming on here like, why would you do that? Hype up somebody so much just to bring them down, especially when you're trying to use the Ultimate Fighter, to purposely push somebody like it seems like they're doing. Because it's like, there have been some questionable decisions in terms of production, Zain, on this TUF season that it's like, you want to make sure TUF actually seen in a good light and not second fiddle to Contender Series, even though the reality is it is second fiddle to Contender Series, but still.
Yeah, those are all very solid points, but clearly, at least to me, when I was watching it, it got me invested in the fight.
Oh yes,
because I'm like, okay, let's see if he can actually back up everything that he's saying. So
actually, that goes right into some of the preparations for this fight. And going into, let me get back to my notes for some reason. Okay, there we go. For some reason, my notes have just stopped. Muhammad Ali had said that Artem had a weak gas tank from what he noticed. So the strategy was just pressure, pressure, pressure. Get through the first round. And if the fight ended up going to a second round, Artem was probably going to be too tired. So Muhammad Ali was so focused on trying to get a finish. And Cormier was nervous about this and told Artem flat out, you need to match his energy and you need to come forward on the front foot and you need to be the one who sets the pace. You need to be the one who pressures.
Yeah, and not to jump too far ahead, but I think his words of encouragement, meaning Bisping's, I think were very well taken because clearly from a Cormier standpoint, they were preparing for an entirely different fight. Let's just put it simply.
All right, let's go into that because from Cormier's comments post-show, it seemed like Artem went off of the planned strategy. And the result was he basically was taken down. And when the fight started, and they even talked about it post-fight, Artem was hanging with him a little bit. You saw them
on the feet, he looked very solid. Yep.
You saw him go tit for tat, that they both landed solid combinations. But as Cormier pointed out in the post-fight comments, I was very confused on why Artem decided to start grappling with it. Now, to be fair, at the very beginning, it was pretty even. You saw the two jostling and jockeying for position up against the fence. But I don't know what Artem was doing trying to get the fight to the ground when Artem was faring very well on the feet and being basically even Steven with him. And Artem blitzed. Artem blitzed right away and nearly got the takedown at the very start of the fight. So it's not like he wasn't listening to Cormier. But when you've got, Artem running into a kick, he still scores a takedown. And then Muhammad Ali, this is the most interesting point to the fight, in my opinion, Zain. Muhammad Ali, while he's being taken down and in the midst of scrambling, turns over to Dana and says, I need to be signed by you.
Yeah.
Like, what in the hell was that? It's almost like something out of...
And Dana goes, okay, brother.
It's almost like something out of Merab's playbook, which Muhammad Ali did train with Merab and Peter Yan. And it almost sounds like Loudmouth, Kevin Holland.
Well, something tells me, and this is just a prediction, I have no inside information or anything like that. Do not be surprised if this guy is in the corner of one of those two when they meet for their trilogy in a couple of months. I'm just saying, because if he somehow ends up in one of these guys' corners, that entire week leading up to the fight is going to be chaos. So
Muhammad Ali lands combinations, and instead of trying to fight back, Artem just tries to tie him up against the fence. Like, wait, what? Like, I get you're trying to stop the momentum, but you were landing decent shots on him too. Why are you not fighting back? The point was to pressure. He's going to pressure you. You pressure back. And then all Muhammad Ali needed to do was just land some single shots. Artem goes for a takedown. It gets stuffed. And he just doesn't put up any defense. Muhammad Ali starts to throw the ground and pound, gets right to the back, gets the choke in, and gets the submission.
Yeah, easy win for him. It wasn't even like he broke a sweat either. He made it look super easy.
Yeah, like I think it's less about Muhammad Ali and more about what happened to Artem. That's not the 11-2 fighter I thought I was going to see coming into this fight.
No, and I think Cormier was visibly disappointed because they clearly prepared for something else. So
he went off the game plan.
Yep.
And that's two straight, not just bad, but maybe even more close to miserable performances from.
Well, I would say Artem looked better than he needed, though.
Oh no, I'm saying you're right, but you have one fighter who goes off the game plan and one who, I mean, like I said last week, a freaking teep kick.
Yeah. I mean, when have you ever seen a teep kick go like that? And I know we're not on last week's episode, but considering I wasn't on, I had the same reaction as you, where I could not stop laughing after she
I thought at first it was a liver shot. I'm like, oh damn! But then I looked, she's so close to landing on the liver.
Yeah.
So that's like, I think that's the thing. Like Team Cormier, I respect the grind, I respect the competitiveness, but the last 2 weeks have been pretty much downright embarrassing.
Yeah, which I don't think it's going to get any easier for Team Cormier going into the next episode, though. Unfortunately,
right. But that the thing I pointed out last week was you consider some of the performances from these first 4 fights, like you saw here with Artem, last week with Anita, the first men's fight of the season, even Christian Strong winning, where Dana blasted him first performance. You look at some of those 4 names that we discussed who got cut. It's like, really, you couldn't bring these guys in?
yeah,
I don't get it.
yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about next week. Natalia Alves is going to take on Tina Black. Tina Black has been produced as the villain of this season.
She clearly is the villain. I don't think it's even a question. I think everybody knows who's watching this season knows that she's the villain of this.
But at this point, I'm going to say it. For all we talk about with TUF and some of the pitfalls and production choices and Tina Black being casted here and the last 2 performances now at Team Cormier, it's must win, in my opinion, for Tina Black.
Absolutely.
For Team Cormier to get any momentum and for this show to get any sort of momentum compared to the previous season we've done. Not in terms of entertainment outside the cage, but inside the cage, these 2 got to show off, and Tina Black's got to win.
Yeah, and I have 2 way too early predictions. 1, I do think this fight happens, and 2, I think it's a really, really boring display where Black wins a forgettable fight. Unfortunately, I just think for whatever reason, there's going to be so much pent up frustration and demand amongst the rest of the cast members that, to me, the fight just won't deliver unless Alves brings. So I don't know.
I know. I respectfully, Zain, I'll say I can understand your point, but if that happens, we might not be far-fetched to say, compared to the TUF seasons we covered and last season, of these 4, this might be the worst in terms of action.
Mm-hmm. Which we obviously don't want that to happen, but it seems like it's going down that path. And to make matters even worse, Tom, I mean, let's be real. Both coaches aren't going to be fighting each other, so it's not like we're looking ahead to a coaches fight that we're really excited about.
Right. I feel like TUF is trying to be either a reality show of the 2000s where it's all about the drama, or the TUF of the 2010s where it's all about the action. Like, where is the happy medium? I feel like is what I'm asking.
Right, and I mean, it doesn't help when you haven't had a coaches fight in 2 years.
Right.
So
I feel like they saw. Now, granted, you had Valentina and Alexa do their trilogy, but at the same time, the expectation was even after that, the McGregor-Chandler fight was going to happen. And I feel like when that fight did not happen, despite all the hype surrounding that TUF season, I feel like Dana and UFC brass have become scared and trying to do something like that again.
It very well seems that way. And again, I have no other info to provide that proves that, but it certainly seems like the show's direction is starting to shift a little bit.
I feel like it, like I said, it feels pretty.
But also, my argument too, and I don't mean to make it about this, but if you really want to shift it to the contestants, I feel like bringing back a strict TUF finale makes a lot of sense, but they're not going to do that, obviously. So
right, and I think you and I are going to go to saying that they're saving the better people for Contender Series and not this show.
That's what I think too.
They've positioned Contender Series as what TUF was in the 2000s.
Right, except now with Contender Series, instantly who's getting in the UFC and who isn't.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, overall, I mean, this is going to have some heat on it. I think everything leading up to this fight next week is going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a segue to this because the promo kind of gives it away. Natalia Alves struggles mightily with her weight cut, mightily, and I mean mightily in ways to where she's in literal tears. I haven't seen anything like that from a weight cut in a long time.
I know, and this is not good that it's 2 weeks in a row where you're going to see a fighter struggle with weight. You know what this is starting to remind me of? We're talking about a tough season that's full of callbacks. The Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate season, where we had a whole tournament be disrupted because there were 2 fights in the lead up to the finals that got scrapped because fighters missed weight.
And there was one fighter, I'm almost positive
that made it to the final without fighting.
Well, that and also one fighter who was kicked off the show in the middle of the season because they didn't make weight.
Yeah, and it's almost like, it feels like, again, we didn't see Dana. I mean, we saw Dana kick somebody off on that show, but for this, again, it feels like we need some sort of Dana, do you want to be a fighter style speech. Even Artem said during this week's show, if you miss weight on TUF, it's very hard to get another shot from Dana.
And you probably won't.
Right.
I think if that speech is coming, it's going to be not this next episode, but maybe a week later. But who knows? Maybe Dana's just so tired of it and all the other things that he is going on that he doesn't have enough time to really grill that into them, because he probably thinks it's an assumption that every fighter should know that you got to – I mean, this show's been on for 20 plus years, guys. You got to know that every week you got to make weight so you can fight.
Right. And maybe it's like what I said before. I don't think maybe he cares so much. As long as Muhammad Ali wins, he'll consider the show a success this year.
Yeah.
I think that's what this episode has told me.
I mean, it goes back to the narrative I said at the beginning of this episode, rather, that we're doing at the moment, is if he doesn't win, it makes all that other stuff be null and void. So they really put themselves in a position where Muhammad Ali needs to win the season now. Mm-hmm.
That's what they've put themselves in. Even if Muhammad Ali just, he wins his semifinal but gets hurt and doesn't fight in the final, whenever the final takes place, it will still be considered a failure.
Right. And to be honest, for his career, it's not going to matter because he could get hurt, get healthy, and they would still sign him anyway.
Right. No, it's not about Muhammad Ali. It's about TUF's reputation.
Right.
That's what it's about.
So we never did this way too early predictions. I'm taking Black in a boring decision, assuming the fight happens. What do you think?
I'm going to take Black as well. I think she gets a second round finish.
Okay.
I only because the way Alves was struggling with that weight cut, if it's as bad as we think it is, I don't know if she'll have the gas tank to make it a full 10 minutes.
I'm making a bold prediction, assuming we have 8 weeks left. I think we're going to see somebody get hurt and somebody return from episode 1 as an alternate to take somebody's place. I just think that season has that vibe to it that someone is going to return to the forefront later on.
If it's on the women's side, you think Anna gets the shot back?
I do, yeah.
Because they're promoting Anna as being like, as somebody so wise and somebody who's so willing to help, that one of the best people of the season, despite having the performance she did in the first episode.
I think there's going to be a twist where she's very much involved in the second half of the season. Yeah, 100%.
Cool. All right. That's going to do it for this episode of TUF Enough. So thank you all again for tuning in. Make sure you hit like, make sure to subscribe with the notification bell so you get notified of everything here at the Empty Bench Network. Subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/TUF Network. Especially you ex-viewers out there, still hit the like button, repost and quote post, but then come over to our YouTube home, help us grow over here. Over 1,100 subscribers, help us continue to grow the subscriber number, the watch hour number. Help us grow on our platform of YouTube.
Yeah, and stay tuned across all of our social medias to find out the latest and greatest content of everything that's going on with this show, and of course all the other combat sports related content that we have coming up over the next several weeks, and a potential big interview for myself down the line as well, which I will keep private for now. But thanks again and for tuning into another edition of TUF Enough. This was a fun stream, and hopefully the parody continues on the personality side, and just maybe I have a glimmer of hope that the fights will get a little bit better. But stay tuned. We'll keep you guys locked in for the rest of the season. And Tom, it's good to be back.
Good to see you back. Follow the show at Fight IQ ETB and Bando's Breakdown. Follow us on social media at Thomas J. Albano at Zambano99 and follow the network at ETB Network. So no Fight IQ Puncher's Chance this week. We'll be back with obviously another edition of Tough Enough next Wednesday. And that's going to be sandwiched between, a new Fight IQ, a new Bando's Breakdown where, next week's the week.
Next week is the week that people have been waiting for since mid-May. Let's hope, fingers crossed, that you get to next Thursday and things are status quo. Because Tom, if we get to next Thursday when that press conference happens and all things are status quo, I think we can confidently say that his toe will touch the canvas and he will actually fight.
As long as his leg doesn't break entering canvas.
Oh no! Do not speak that into existence.
The fight gets canceled right as they're making their entrances. But you know what? At least we would have gotten to fight day.
That's right.
God, I'm the worst. All right. That was it, Mando. I'm Tom Albano. We'll see you next week for another edition of Tough Enough. Until then, take care, everybody.
Have a good one, everyone, and cheers.